Okay, we've got a little bit over 25 hours on the Gravely zero-turn mower, so it's time to change the oil. And this one has the Kawasaki engine, and all three Kawasaki engines, the oil change is going to be the same. The filter location and the procedure, no matter what size the pistons are. Of course, this one is the smaller one, which I like actually better than the other ones. The FR691V. The 23 horsepower. The other one is 23 horsepower. It's a little bit different, and then there's another one that's 24 horses, which for the money I don't need that extra horse. Okay, let's see how big of a mess I can make changing the oil on the engine. Like I said, it was 25 hours is the first oil change. Okay, so we're on the Gravely 991164, which is a ZT HD52. And if you look in the owner's manual, it says refer to the engine manual. We will refer to our engine manual for the oil change. So when I look on a chart, you know, I'm not going to be riding around at freezing. So the recommendation is 2050. That'll take me up, you know, as hot as it gets around here. If you're always in hot, maybe straight 40. But anyway, so the point is the 2050 is going to take me from freezing water to, you know, above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's quite a range. Now what I'm saying is that the hydraulic system is 15 W50, so I'm going to go ahead and go with 15 W50 for engine and hydraulic oil, so I can just use the same oil. They're both motor oils. It's really interesting that that's the way it is, so that's what I'm going to do. Now what's interesting is the engine manual is 100 hours for engine oil, and oil filter every other oil change. So every 200 hours is an oil filter, and every 100 hours is a oil change. Now the Gravely manual has an initial oil change at 25 hours. So let me look that up, see if that's oil and filter. So what the Gravely manual says is the meter that I showed you earlier, or I'm going to show you, it's going to say the first 25 hours, and then every 100 hours thereafter is oil and filter. And then if you look at the owner's manual for the Kawasaki engine, you know, its chart just says change engine oil every 100 hours and oil filter every 200 hours. Now as a homeowner, and with the cost of filters being so minor in my opinion, I just change the oil and filter every time. Alright, so don't forget the engine filter is different from the transmission filter or the drive gear filters. So there's two different ones that you'll have to deal with. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is remove the back cover here. So I'll take out the two screws, one on each side, and I'll remove the cover. Just comes right off. Just sits on the bottom. These two little tabs here sit right here. Is that in camera? Alright, next thing you want to notice when you take the oil filter out, we'll unscrew it from here. There's a hole right here that's hidden by the cable and the oil drain line, and that's going to flow out the bottom. So we'll need something to catch the oil filter run out. And then what's also really convenient is the oil drain line ends right here. So we'll have to take this out here. I'll unscrew it. It's pretty tight. I'll unscrew it so it kind of drains here, or I can let it drain through the hole. I'll see what I feel like. All right, this looks a bit weird to me, but I'll check the dipstick. It says that a change is with filter is 2.2 quart, 2.1 liter. So it's kind of close. But anyway, I guess they round it up or down, whatever. Alright, my socket kind of interferes with the engine here, and I don't want to just take off stuff for an oil change, so I'm just going to use a wrench. I'm going to use a 14 millimeter wrench to take this bolt loose a little bit, because I just can't seem to bend that enough to get the hose out of the way. And of course it's too tight for one of my little ratchety 14 millimeters, so I've got to deal with this. And it's also next to the hot muffler because I just cut the grass, you know, I wanted to warm up the oil. Fun stuff. Okay, so I was finally able to unhook the hose here, and I'm going to bend this up a little bit so that I can hook it and unhook it more easily for the future. I don't know how the technicians do it in the shop, but you know, my ratcheting wrench didn't work. There wasn't enough room, so now I'm going to quarter turn this thing back down till it's tight, and I was able to bend this open a little bit, and that'll be the future for me. Alright, the drain hose is standard sizes, so we're going to use 11/16 to hold the brass steady, and then I'll use a 5/8 to unbolt the hole. So then what I'm going to do is get that draining, and then mess with the oil filter, which looks like it's going to just make a big mess. Alright, so I have my pan in place, and I'm going to undo the oil filter and the oil drain. Alright, I've got the dipstick pulled, let some air go in through the top there. So I decided to give myself access by removing the oil fill spout. Okay, if I can't undo the oil filter, which is behind that spring there, beside the hydraulic oil level reservoir, I'm going to have to use a strap. I have a thin strap and a thick strap, and that should be enough room for me to get on there and get it off. Alright, I'm zoomed in pretty tight, but really it wasn't on there that tight. The strap, I just barely touched it, and off it comes. Alright, well, I'm continuously moving the camera to film this, but that's okay. So it looks like there's a little shelf there, which is nice. Let me get the camera, get that centered. So there's a little shelf there, so when it does drip off, it goes onto the shelf, and then the shelf goes on to the plated area and through the hole. Let me get a shot of that. Okay, so there we are. So it drips off this shelf onto the plate and through the hole and down into my catch pan there. Also, I'm not sure about the wrenches to use, you know, standard or metric. It looks like there's a combination. I mean, this might be Gravely put that on a product, so that's why it's standard, and the engine is Kawasaki, that's why it's metric. So yeah, I'm new to this, so I'm not going to declare one or the other. So let's drain that hose there. Let's unscrew the plug on the hose and drain it. Now I really am 100% on this. This is all standard hardware. So I'm going to get that off. Alright, got that loose. Let's see what happens here. The main thing is to let it go into my catch pan. Of course, now I have the wrench on there. Maybe I'll use it to let it drain the way I want it to. Alright, so I got my wrench off and it really didn't fit down the hole. I really think we have a mix of standard and metric parts. And I think that Gravely just put that on there. Alright, the instructions are right on the oil filter, which is pretty nice. You know, it just says coat this with clean oil, hand tight, and run it about 3 minutes for 3 minutes after it's been replaced to check for leaks, which makes sense. Alright, got my oil on there. Just screw it on there. Once it's snug, we'll go 3/4. It wasn't on very tight. I really didn't even need the strap. So we'll just get it on there good and tight. Alright, and on the dipstick it says, for correct oil level, do not screw cap onto threads. Alright, looks like we're done draining here, so I'm going to plug the hose and set it back in its place. And I have the filter screwed in and it's hand tight. As soon as it touched, I turned it about a half a turn, maybe 3/4 to tighten it down. So let's button this thing up. So I'll just get the screw started here. And then, like I said, the standard fit better than the metric on these. So we'll just kind of snug that down a little bit. Put it back here. I mean, that's not going anywhere. I think I might screw it down a little bit so that it's so it doesn't hit and remove the paint. Okay, so I have it back together. I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in real quick what I did. I mean, you don't have to do this, but this is what I did. As you can see, it's up a little bit off the paint and off to the side. That's what I'm going with. So I'm going to put the back cover back on and fill it up with oil. So to put the cover back on, we just line up these tabs here. Make sure our lines aren't caught on anything here. And we'll screw it in. So use a real thin gasket there to keep from damaging the paint. So I just put like a little grommet on there. Alright, we have oil now flashing, or we did. So it says to reset it. Well, we have the mode button here is all you have. So you have different menus to go through: the hydraulic oil, the motor oil. Then you want to go to TWK1. So I turned it on, I pressed the mode till it went to TWK1. Now while it says TWK1 right here, I'm going to press and hold it. You can see that all the zeros went on there to reset. I'm going to let it go. And there we go. Now at 100 hours it's going to tell me to change the oil again. And also, if the hydraulic oil and the engine oil are at the same time, it says H oil and just oil. So that's how you know the difference between engine oil and hydraulic oil. So there we go. We can go back to mode here. Well, I can just turn it off, I guess. And we'll go through the modes. And we have 29.3 hours on here. What happens when I turn it back on? Yeah, it's just hours. So it's just waiting for start. So that's it. When I turned it off, it's going through all the menus to, you know, like for an oil change, it would say oil now, oil now. So anyway. Okay, I know it's difficult to see black on black, but you know, now it's time to put in my 2 quarts of oil. So here I go. I'm going to move the oil pan from underneath. Get my clearance here, get clean rags, clean gloves, and fill her up. Okay, so now I'm going to summarize what did I learn with my first Gravely zero-turn mower oil change. I learned the filter wasn't on super tight, so you could probably get it off by hand. I learned that the oil drain hose was a little bit short and was kind of fun to manipulate that around, and that you could just have a drain plug back there and let it just drain on the pan, on the engine mount, and drip out the bottom. I mean, it was just super easy to catch in my catch pan. Also, the engine hardware there, I removed the oil dipstick holder, which is the oil fill, and that made it easier to access the oil filter by going in this way instead of the side. So, you know, it really wasn't a bad job. And it's 2 quarts of oil. I'll probably change the oil filter every time, but the books say every other time. And it really wasn't that difficult. I mean, I had to learn wrench sizes and access and fiddling around, getting it to it, see what's best for me, what's best for the engine, you know, and work around that. So, all good. Thank you for watching.